The Zelians were immensely proud of being the most advanced species in the known universe, with bodies made of radiant crystal and glowing softly from within. They glided gracefully through their spotless cities, which floated effortlessly in the clouds of their home planet, long before most other civilizations had figured out how to add and subtract. The Zelians were already unraveling the mysteries of quantum mechanics. Their technology had become so refined that traveling faster than light was, to them, no more impressive than a child learning to tie their shoes. Yet despite their overwhelming superiority and countless accomplishments, there was one rule, one universal commandment, that even the mighty Zelians dared not break: do not wake the humans. It wasn't that humans appeared particularly threatening, at least not at first. In fact, they seemed rather ordinary. Fragile biological organisms who had only barely achieved interstellar travel before entering their mysterious cryogenic slumber. According to the stories, they had chosen to enter cryosleep during their Third World War. As their home planet teetered on the edge of ruin from dwindling resources, now entire human colonies floated silently through space aboard massive, automated ships frozen in time, asleep for centuries as their systems kept them alive. The real reason behind the unbreakable rule was lost to history, passed down like legend, translated into every galactic tongue, and enforced by all spacefaring societies. Galactic archives were filled with countless warnings, all echoing the same chilling command: let them sleep. Chief Science Officer Zith gently brushed his shimmering crystalline limbs across the control panel of his research vessel, bringing up a holographic image of the latest human colony ship they'd come across. Following strict protocol, his crew maintained a careful distance from the ship. By their standards, it was ancient, practically a relic, and yet something about it made Zith's entire structure resonate with unease. Fascinating beings, he murmured, his voice reverberating through his crystalline frame. They look so peaceful when they sleep. Hard to believe they're the reason behind our most sacred law. If only he had known how right he was to feel uneasy. It was supposed to be a routine operation. That's what Zith would later explain to the emergency council, his form dimming with the weight of shame. Just a simple scan of the ship's outer hull. No breaches, no interference, no danger. But his junior researcher Zix had other ideas. Fresh out of the Galactic Academy, top of his class, and radiating enough confidence to power a solar array, Zix had become utterly obsessed with human biology from the moment they discovered the vessel. The scans had picked up something strange in the humans' cryogenic systems and efficiency that seemed to defy the very laws of thermodynamics as the Zelians understood them. Just a tiny probe, Zix had pleaded, his crystalline structure practically buzzing with excitement. We won't even get near the humans. Imagine what we could learn. Zith should have stopped him. The moment the probe activated, everything changed. The long-dormant human ship suddenly stirred to life, humming with power after centuries of silence. Warning lights exploded across their research vessel's dashboard. What did you do? Zith's voice shattered into panicked dissonance. Nothing. I mean, Nye might have, Zix stammered. The probe's quantum signature. It might have resonated with their cryofield. Zix's once vibrant glow dimmed to near transparency in terror. On the main screen, one by one, the pods began to flicker and open like stars appearing at dusk. Thousands of them. And the ancient systems, they weren't primitive. Far from it. The ship executed an awakening sequence so flawlessly, it was nearly beyond their sensors' ability to track. Emergency transmission to High Command, Zith barked. His crystals now pulsed in rapid, anxious waves. Code ultraviolet. I repeat, code ultraviolet. Human awakening in progress. Sector 7. The response was immediate. Within moments, their modest research ship was surrounded by a full fleet of Zelian warcraft, encircling the human vessel in a strict containment formation. The High Commander herself appeared on the main screen, her ancient, violet-hued, crystalline body glowing with fury. "You absolute neutron star-brained fools," she bellowed, using an insult so ancient it predated even faster-than-light travel. "Do you have the faintest idea what you've done? The humans weren't meant to awaken for at least another 1,000 years. Zith tried to regain control. High Commander, perhaps we can reverse it. Put them back into stasis, an alert. Cut him off." The human ship was powering up its engines. Systems that shouldn't even function anymore were now fully operational. Brainwave patterns were off the charts. The humans weren't just awake, they were angry. Too late, the High Commander whispered, her tone hushed and grave. "They're awake. May the First Light have mercy on us all." Chaos erupted. Emergency protocols kicked in. Evacuation orders were issued. Amid the frantic activity, Zix turned to Zith and muttered what would later be quoted as the understatement of the millennium. "I don't suppose this will look good on my performance review." The human ship's communications array roared to life, broadcasting on all known frequencies in a language that hadn't been heard in centuries. The message was simple, unmistakable, and destined to become infamous across the stars. "Who dares disturb our slumber?" The Zelian diplomatic corps had always prided themselves on their finesse. They'd de-escalated wars, averted genocides, and once even convinced a hive mind not to turn an entire galaxy into paperclips. But they had never trained for this. Millions of grumpy, recently awakened humans, all jolted out of a centuries-long nap. Ambassador Crystal, a name chosen based on human preferences for literal translations, led the diplomatic delegation. Her crystal form gleamed, refracting light in aesthetic perfection. Rated top tier across 16 different species beauty standards. "Remember," she instructed her team, "we must be diplomatic, respectful, above all, apologetic." We disturbed their rest. How bad could it be? The answer? Much worse than anyone imagined. The human ship had granted them docking permission, which the diplomatic team naively took as a good sign. It wasn't the moment they floated through the airlock. They were met by several humans in rumpled pajamas, their eyes darkened with sleep deprivation, holding mugs of what scanners identified as coffee, which was instantly flagged as a possible biochemical weapon. The human in the lead glared at them. "So, you're the ones who thought it'd be fun to wake up several million humans before the alarm went off." Ambassador Crystal began her carefully crafted speech, glittering with earnestness. "Most esteemed humans, on behalf of the Galactic Alliance, we extend our sincerest save-it." "Sparkles," the human interrupted, taking a long sip from their mug. "Do you have any idea how long it took us to sync our sleep schedules? Do you know what kind of miracle it is to get millions of people to agree on nap time?" The diplomatic team exchanged worried glances, their crystalline bodies flickering with growing anxiety. "This wasn't in the handbook. We've prepared extensive reparations," another diplomat offered nervously. "Top-tier comfort tech, dream enhancement devices, soothing, oh that's rich," the human snorted, nearly making the entire diplomatic team jump. You think fancy pillows are gonna fix this? Ever try going back to sleep after being rudely woken up? Things spiraled from there. The humans, it turned out, had a lot of opinions about being woken up, and they were determined to voice every single one of them, preferably at maximum volume. The situation deteriorated quickly. One particularly agitated human discovered that their favorite snack, something called pizza, had gone extinct during their slumber. The ensuing meltdown caused 3 diplomatic aides to fracture under pressure, and another to temporarily lose their crystalline coherence. This is unprecedented. Ambassador Crystal whispered in a private transmission to High Command. They're not threatening us. They're not even trying to destroy us. They're just complaining relentlessly about everything. And then came the true horror. The humans began organizing what they called a town hall meeting to air their collective grievances. Just the concept was enough to make the entire diplomatic corps shudder. Millions of irritated, just awakened humans preparing to vent in unison. It was a diplomatic doomsday scenario. We have to intervene, Crystal pleaded with her superiors. They're forming committees, for Starlight's sake. But it was already too late. The humans had made an even more catastrophic discovery. All their favorite entertainment platforms had ceased functioning centuries ago. The phrase Netflix and chill began circulating with increasing levels of hostility. Someone mentioned social media withdrawal, and the universal translators nearly fried themselves trying to process the emotional weight of that phrase. In a final, desperate bid to de-escalate, Ambassador Crystal offered the humans dominion over a handful of luxurious resort planets where they could chill until they were ready to return to hibernation. The human leader's response would go down in diplomatic records as the shortest and most terrifying refusal ever documented. Bold of you to assume we'll ever feel ready to sleep again. Now, about those extinct pizza recipes. The Galactic Alliance would soon learn a harsh truth. An awakened human with a grudge was dangerous enough, but an awakened human with a grudge and no access to their comfort foods was an unmitigated interstellar disaster. And things only got worse when the humans finally checked their emails. Or rather, the quantum-encrypted messages that had piled up during their centuries-long nap. The Zelian High Council watched in horror as the mood of the human collective shifted. It started with irritation, and then morphed into something far more ominous: amusement. Let me get this straight, the human leader said, now on their 15th cup of coffee, addressing an emergency session of the Galactic Alliance. While we were asleep, you all decided we went into cryo because we'd run out of resources. The High Commander's glow dimmed in embarrassment. According to our historical archives, oh, this is gold, another human interjected, actually wiping away tears of laughter. They really have no idea. The truth, as it turned out, was far more ridiculous than the Galactic Alliance could have ever imagined. The humans hadn't gone into cryosleep out of desperation. They had done it because they were bored. Pretty much solved everything, the human leader explained, casually scrolling through centuries-old mission logs with a growing grin. Clean energy, world peace, universal healthcare, FTL travel. We even figured out why kids love cinnamon. Toast, crunch. There was nothing left to do. The Galactic Archives were soon revealed to be hilariously inaccurate. Those primitive-looking human ships, camouflage, the seemingly basic cryopods, actually advanced quantum consciousness storage systems that made Zelian tech look like banging rocks together. The humans hadn't just been sleeping. They'd been running universe-scale simulations, solving quantum equations that made supercomputers weep. and apparently binge-watching every possible version of reality TV across infinite timelines. But the warning, Ambassador Crystal stammered. The rule, don't wake the humans. That came from that the human scientist smirked. Yeah, we wrote that. Scattered it across the galaxy. Best prank ever. The revelation hit the Galactic Alliance like a solar flare. Humans weren't an endangered, vulnerable species that needed protection. They were basically cosmic teenagers who had scheduled a multi-century nap and left behind the universe's longest out-of-office message. As the truth continued to unravel, the full extent of humanity's capabilities began to surface, and it was absurd. While the rest of the galaxy had been treating them like a fragile mystery species, the humans had, in their sleep, mapped every possible timeline, solved the unified theory of everything, then got bored and invented a few more interesting ones, and even cracked whether hot dogs qualified as sandwiches, though they refused to share that answer, claiming some secrets were better left unknown. They had also created and discarded 17 types of social media platforms in their simulated environments, deciding they were emotionally exhausting. They'd figured out where all the missing socks in the laundry ended up again, keeping the answer to themselves. To make matters worse, the primitive human tech the Zelians had been studying in awe wasn't even real equipment. It was art. School projects. Doodles left behind by human children while their parents caught up on sleep. But why? The High Commander finally asked, her crystalline form pulsing with confused frustration. Why pretend to be an unconscious civilization? The human leader gave a tired chuckle. You ever tried being the most advanced species in the galaxy? It's exhausting. Everyone always needs something: tech help, philosophical guidance, emotional support. We just wanted a break. The final blow to the Alliance's ego came when it was revealed that humanity had achieved their advanced civilization status before most other species had invented the wheel. They'd simply chosen to sit back and watch, occasionally offering anonymous tips like, try pointing the rocket the other way, or maybe don't mix those two chemicals. It was like a cosmic gap year, one human explained to the increasingly overwhelmed council. Except instead of backpacking across Europe, we took a few centuries off and let the galaxy figure itself out. The High Commander's final report to the Alliance captured it perfectly. We thought we were shielding a vulnerable, dormant race. In reality, we've been unwitting participants in the longest, most elaborate social experiment in galactic history, and now the experimenters are awake, caffeinated and curious. Zix's infamous incident, what had initially been labeled the greatest scientific disaster in Zelian history, was reclassified by the Science Academy as the most successful wake-up call ever recorded. Whether that designation was a compliment or not remained up for debate. Galactic power structures began to collapse overnight, or, more accurately, they were casually rewritten by the newly awake humans. One moment, the Zelians were the uncontested stewards of the stars. The next, they were watching humans rearrange star systems because the galactic feng shui was off. You can't move a solar system. High Commander, Christos protested, vibrating with disbelief as humans calmly repositioned celestial bodies. Watch us, replied the human leader, now clad in a bathrobe and bunny slippers, directing the rearrangement of an entire star cluster. This one was blocking the view of that nebula. Also, commute time between systems was ridiculous. Who designed this layout? Trying to maintain control of the universe with fully awake humans was like trying to herd quantum cats. Theoretically possible, but utterly hopeless in practice. Humans began fixing problems no one had realized were problems. They introduced weekend breaks to species who'd never considered stopping work. They created galaxy-spanning Wi-Fi that worked across dimensions. They launched an interplanetary food delivery service that guaranteed delivery from any world. In 30 minutes or less, or your money back. The one sufficient, Zelian. Bureaucracy descended into beautiful chaos after humans introduced casual Fridays and mandatory office parties. The sight of glowing crystalline beings awkwardly trying to wear Hawaiian shirts would forever haunt the High Commander's memory. But perhaps the most shocking change came from the younger generations of other species. They didn't resist human influence, they embraced it. Young Zelians began forming social clubs with humans. Meme culture spread like wildfire. The galaxy's first interspecies meme war broke out, and it was glorious. You have to admit, Zik said to Zith, watching humans teach young Zelians how to chill, they really do make things more entertaining. Zith, whose career had miraculously survived the Great Awakening, simply nodded, dazed. The humans had promoted him to chief officer of making sure humans don't get too bored. Again, a role he wasn't entirely sure was a punishment or a promotion. The humans' approach to galactic governance left the Alliance completely baffled. Instead of strict hierarchical systems and interstellar councils, they built something they called a Universal Community Center. A massive space station where species from all over the galaxy could just hang out and vibe. Diplomatic decisions were now made over board games, trivia nights, and potluck dinners. But what about protocol? Ambassador Crystal asked in horror, watching a centuries-old territorial dispute being resolved via interplanetary karaoke. Protocols are just suggestions with fancy hats. The human mediator replied cheerfully, before belting out a deeply emotional rendition of Universal Wind by Darrow Sandstorm, apparently a classic from their cryo-sleep playlist. Even the dreaded void crawlers, a species that had terrified the galaxy for millennia, turned out to be surprisingly chill once the humans introduced them to hot chocolate and bubble wrap. We weren't evil, their hive mind explained through a translator. We were just really stressed out. Humans had a bizarre way of fixing problems. Most of their solutions involved one of three things: naps, snacks, or group therapy. Somehow, these simplistic methods worked better than any complex system of interstellar policy the galaxy had ever attempted. They created the Galactic Chill Zone Treaty, an official agreement with clauses like mandatory vacation days, universal nap rights, and the galactic legal right to Netflix and actually chill. Any species found working too hard was immediately visited by the newly formed Department of Taking It Easy, often accompanied by cookies and blankets. Even the rigid Zelian High Council found itself transformed into what the humans called a cosmic coffee club, where major decisions were made only if everyone had a warm drink and a baked good in hand. You know what your problem was. A human once asked a group of high-ranking Crystalline Council members, too much structure, not enough flow. You gotta ride the gravitational waves, dudes. Perhaps the most stunning shift of all came in the form of the interspecies relaxation coalition, led by younger generations of Zelians, void crawlers, and other species. Together with the humans, they pursued the elusive ideal of work-life balance. Productivity across the galaxy skyrocketed, mostly because everyone had finally learned when to stop working. Zith found himself marveling one day as he watched a human teach young Zelians how to roast s'mores using a plasma reactor. For all the madness, the chaos, the endless noise may be waking the humans hadn't been a disaster after all. Maybe it had been the galaxy's long overdue reset button. "Chief Officer," a human called out cheerfully, "we're about to kick off the first annual galactic game night. Want in? We're playing Monopoly, Universal Edition. We upgraded it to include actual solar systems." Zith's crystalline frame shimmered with what might have been exasperation, or maybe amusement. It was hard to tell these days. "Sure," he replied. "I mean, the universe can't really get any weirder, right?" The human just grinned. "Oh, just wait until we introduce you to karaoke." 6 months after the Great Awakening, though the humans insisted on calling it the Universal Snooze Button Incident, the galaxy had transformed into something utterly unrecognizable. The Zelian archives, once revered for their meticulous records, gave up trying to catalogue the rapid changes and started a blog instead. "It's more our aesthetic now," the humans said. The cultural blending between species led to some truly unforgettable moments. The once feared void crawlers had become wildly popular as meditation instructors. Apparently, their natural talent for inducing existential dread was perfect for helping others discover inner peace. A common galactic saying even emerged: "Nothing makes you appreciate life like a creature from the void asking about your career goals." The Zan, with their glowing crystal bodies, were found to be exceptionally good at something humans called mood lighting. Before long, young Zan were opening trendy interstellar lounges, using their bioluminescence to create perfectly chill atmospheres. The most exclusive venue, Crystal Vibes, had a waiting list that stretched 3 centuries. Of course, not every part of this cultural integration was smooth. The first interspecies Olympic Games had to be postponed indefinitely after it was discovered that the high jump event was wildly unfair to species who could manipulate gravity. The swimming competitions were cancelled entirely after aquatic civilizations took the term pool noodles literally, with disastrous results. Even the universal education system underwent a major overhaul. History classes became way more interesting. Today's topic, a teacher might say, why did the humans pretend to sleep for hundreds of years? Answer, because they were tired. Correction, nope, because they were tired of us. Fair, the Galactic Senate was rebranded into something called a Town Hall Hangout, complete with beanbags, ambient lighting, and an unlimited snack supply. The only rule: no political discussions without pizza. Strangely, legislation had never moved more efficiently. Even the once imposing Zelian military wasn't immune to change. Their intimidating war cruisers were retrofitted with coffee shops and yoga studios. Videos of crystalline admirals attempting downward-facing dog became viral memes across 17 dimensions. Cultural exchange became hilariously unpredictable. Humans introduced the concept of casual dress to species that didn't even wear clothes. This sparked a galaxy-wide debate over whether wearing nothing was more or less casual than wearing something. Eventually, the debate was settled, diplomatically, by declaring Everyday Hat Day, because, universally, hats were funny. The universal translation matrix had to be completely reprogrammed to accommodate human idioms. Phrases like "it's raining cats and dogs" triggered weather emergencies on 3 different planets before someone clarified it was metaphorical, although the void crawlers did try to make it literal, just to see what would happen. But where humans made their deepest impact, food, their insistence on fusing flavors across species led to a culinary explosion. The quantum quesadilla became a galactic staple. The void crawler Vindaloo was described as an acquired taste no one wanted to acquire. Zith now humorously renamed the director of keeping things interesting, a title humans insisted was important. Spent most of his days settling bizarre interspecies misunderstandings. No, you can't actually steal someone's nose. The floor is not literally lava. Yes, humans do need 8 hours of sleep. And no, your face is not an acceptable diplomatic response. Yet, despite all the chaos, or maybe because of it, the galaxy was thriving. Species weren't just coexisting, they were enjoying each other. Somehow, humanity's beautifully messy, snack-fueled, nap-happy brand of order had created the most peaceful and productive era in galactic history. As one human philosopher poetically put it, sometimes you need to wake up the universe to help it dream better. Unexactly 1 year after the Great Awakening, the Galactic Alliance gathered for its annual review. The once solemn meeting chamber had been transformed. Plush recliners had replaced stiff chairs. Ambient music played. Softly in the background, snack tables lined the walls. A non-negotiable human requirement. Conversations buzzed in dozens of languages, punctuated by the occasional crystalline chime of laughter. High Commander Sistos took the stage, their gleaming form shimmering with amusement. Looking back, they began. We spent millennia upholding a rule we never really understood. Don't wake the humans. Turns out, they weren't even sleeping. They were just taking a break from babysitting the galaxy. The human leader, still in their now iconic bathrobe, which had inexplicably become the official diplomatic uniform across 3 sectors, raised their mug in acknowledgement. To be fair, they said with a smirk, you guys weren't doing too badly. Well, mostly, except for that whole void crawler situation. We said we were sorry, muttered the void crawler representative, pulling their comfort scarf tighter around their shimmering mandibles. But just as things seemed settled, Zith noticed something odd. The humans were yawning. Not just 1 or 2, all of them. Subtle at first, then more pronounced, stretching, eye-rubbing, blank stares. A prickle of scientific dread crept up his crystalline spine. Is everything all right? He asked the human leader, who blinked slowly like someone coming down from an epic caffeine high. Oh yeah, they replied through a yawn. You know that feeling when you've been up for a while after a really long nap, and then the tiredness kinda sneaks back in. The room went dead silent. Every crystalline being vibrated in horrified unison. You can't mean, Ambassador Crystal started, her voice cracking. Yeah, the human leader said, stretching leisurely. We're thinking it might be time for another nap. You guys seem to have things mostly under control now. But the High Commander sputtered, their glow flickering like a broken signal. You can't just go back to sleep. The human leader grinned wickedly. Watch us. Don't worry, we left instructions this time. Real ones. Not just that prank about not waking us up. They paused, eyes twinkling. Although, we might keep that rule just for nostalgia. And so, in a twist no one could have predicted, except maybe everyone, the galaxy once again began preparing for human hibernation. Only this time, it wasn't out of fear, but genuine admiration. They were willing participants in what would go down in history as the Great Universal Snooze. Sequel Edition. As Zith watched the humans prepping their cozy pods, double-checking sleep playlists, and sharing last-minute snack recipes, he couldn't help but shake his crystalline head in wonder. The universe had clung to that one sacred law for ages. Don't wake the humans. "Don't wake the humans now." They were going back to sleep. But at least, he thought with a quiet chuckle, they taught us how to make coffee before checking out again, in the end. The greatest truth of the galaxy wasn't complex or cosmic. It was simple. Sometimes everyone just needs a really good nap. No one was entirely sure what that meant, but it sounded deep, so they printed it on t-shirts.